We're going to start, but I'm using this just in case there's anybody on the stream. But it'll be, some people will watch later, I'm assuming. So, yeah, we're going to start. Normally at this time of the year, I give the whole worship team off, as you can see. It's a bit empty behind me. So, we would have used YouTube videos, but we'll have copyright issues. So instead, I just cut and put in a different strip. I just cut out songs from previous sets that the worship team have done. So you're going to see the worship team. And for anyone watching the stream, it's going to be just as per normal. It's just going to be sudden change of worship team members, and you think it's a miracle. But it's just technology. So, yeah. So, look at the screen. The words will be there. The band will be there. Beth Ann and Darren will lead themselves in song.
To the God who darkness when hope was restored? Where was despair when my God split the shores? Where was defeat when the Lord took a breath? When he stood in power by the grave that he left? Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere is the fear when my King resurrects. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere was the doubt when my King conquered death. Where was the sorrow when dry bones arose? And where was the pain when the sick touched the road? Where was disgrace when the King laid to rest the stronghold of sin by the grace he possessed? And nowhere, nowhere, nowhere is the fear when my King resurrects. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere was the doubt when my King conquered death. I see joy rising, I hear hope calling, I hear fear hiding, I hear chains falling, I see walls shaking, I hear doubt running. My God's on his way, yes, he is coming. I see joy rising, I hear hope calling, I see fear hiding, I hear chains falling, I see walls shaking,
Oh, we exalt your name. See your face in every sunrise. Colors of the morning are inside your eyes. The world awakens in the light of the day. Look up to the sky and say, you're beautiful. You're beautiful. I see your power in the moonlit night, where planets are in motion and galaxies are bright. We are amazed in the light of the stars. It's all proclaiming who you are. You're beautiful. Oh, 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 you're beautiful. Again for me. Now you are sitting in your heavenly throne, and soon we will be coming home. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. Oh, you're beautiful. Jesus, you're beautiful. You're beautiful. When we arrive at eternity's shore, where death is just a memory and tears are no more, we'll enter in as the wedding bells ring. Your bride will come together and we'll sing, you're beautiful. Oh, oh, you're beautiful. Can't take our eyes off you, Jesus. Oh, I see your face. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. I see your face. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. I see your face. I see your face. I see your face. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. Jesus. You're beautiful. You are welcome here. Jesus. Can't keep my eyes off of you. You are beautiful. Oh Lord, my God, Jesus. Oh, we long for you. Hallelujah, hallelujah. You're beautiful.
See, Julia's not here, but her just remembered while we were doing that. It was just, I just wanted to leave it. It was just a nice space. And every time Julia did a little thing, she looked. I just smiled it in. Did it again. Just left her hanging for a while. She did. She did a great job. Just trying to think, announcements-wise, everything returns to normal. No life groups yet, but otherwise everything else returns to normal. There was something I needed to say, so I should have written it down. Sorry? As of the week ahead, as back to Sunday services, on the 8th we'll be here again as per normal. So, yeah, Beth Ann and Darren, if you didn't like the leading this morning, it's your own problem. If you didn't like the rendition of that song, that's too bad. Look at yourselves. So I know often at this time we've got the year review video that we'll finish with. So often we look at different places. We look, out of Hebrews 12. We're going to look at that, but there are a few different points that I just felt in preparing for tonight. So don't think, no, I've heard this before. Autopilot, shopping list, I'll catch up when we get into the year review video. There's a few changes. But Hebrews 12 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So there's a couple of places we're encouraged to look. And it says we must fix our eyes. And I think that in itself is a challenge, because when it comes to fixing our eyes, we're not always that good. I think many of us got the attention span of a moth. That's why TikTok works so well. Chink, 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 chink. It's just short clips. That's why it's such a hit. You don't have to focus. You ask people, are your eyes fixed on Jesus? Yeah, he's there. Back to here. You know, if it's like if we put a picture of him there, if we knew exactly what he looked like, but I carried on talking over here, people are going to take their eyes off there and look here because he has action, right? And that's how easy it is that we get distracted from the things we've been asked to do. And we can say, my eyes are fixed on Jesus, but I think a verse we'll read later is sometimes we've got to look at ourselves with sober judgment and say, have I fixed my eyes in the right places? It's like this and something else has got your full attention over and above the things he's asked us to give our attention to. Looking at something is different from fixing your eyes on something. So one of the things he says is we must look in. We must look in. Consider, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. So we've got to look in at what's hindering me in my walk with the Lord. What's hindering me from running freely? It's not necessarily sin. It can be all sorts of things that hinder you. It can be, it's easy to look at a church and say traditions hinder church, which is true for a lot of churches, a lot of traditions. A lot of churches broke away from the traditions. Yeah, we're going to freedom. And they just made up a whole lot of new traditions. They just made new rules that are different from those rules, and nobody will ever change them from those new rules. We've got to keep changing, and traditions prevent us from changing. What are we holding on to? And there's things, and I know some of these things I'm going to say now could be personal. I know, but if the shoe fits, wear it, right? Jesus was the rock of offense. So my intention is not to offend, my intention is to challenge. I mean, hurts, past hurts can be burdens we need to let go of because they're hindering your walk with the Lord and they're hindering your walk altogether. And I chatted we were doing some pre-marriage counseling with somebody, and they said, this past, I don't know how this aspect of our marriage life is going to work because of something that happened in my past. I said, well, you better fix that. Because what you're saying is your marriage got a weakness before you've even started. You can't let the past ruin your future. You can't allow that to rob what's in front of you. If we don't deal with our past hurts, they steal from what's in front of us. If we don't deal with them and move on, they keep us back and they hinder us from doing things. There's things that we should do that we don't do because of that. And I think sometimes we even become comfortable with some of those excuses. This happened to me, so if I don't do that, if I don't do this, it's all right because of my past. I struggle with this, so yeah, if I don't do this, it's all right. Now, how about we deal with those things because they're hindering your future? How about we look inside and contemplate and say, right, enough, and move on. Deal with it, face it, get it done with. It might be painful, it might be uncomfortable, but you've got freedom from it from that point forward. You're able to run without a limp anymore. Isn't that going to be great? Yeah. So some people just get comfortable with a condition or comfortable with an excuse and embrace it instead of, I'm tired of this thing stealing from me. Could be responsibilities we feel we have or have picked up out of mercy rather than something God has asked you to do. So we've picked up things and we're doing work that God actually hasn't asked you to do. And because you're so busy doing these things God hasn't asked you to do, you've got no time to do the things He has asked you to do. It's hindering you from walking into the fullness of what He's called you to do. You've got this whole future and inheritance, but you're too busy doing other things to get cracking with this. And then you wonder why another year's gone by and not much has changed. Well, how much effort have you put into walking into the things God said versus distracted with a whole bunch of other things? I'm not saying give away all we've all got responsibilities to carry out your responsibility, but sometimes we pick up things and we start walking with, like, oh man, I'm going to help this person walk through this thing. Has God asked you to do that? Because if He hasn't, that thing's going to drain the life out of you. Just trying to be helpful, it's actually better to hook them up with someone God has asked them to walk with. You walk with that person, and that's your contribution to their healing and restoration, is to connect them with the right person. Not necessarily have to be the right person for everybody. Not everybody that comes to me for counseling gets counseling from me. And for some of them, it's probably better that way. But if I have to give counseling to everybody, I'm never going to do anything else. And it's going to drain the life out of me because it's not my, I think you need a lot of patience to be a counselor. And that's why I married Judith. Not because she tests my patience, because she brings that aspect, right? The sin that so easily entangles. And that's different for everybody, right? Something that entangles me is not going to necessarily entangle Zach. It's not a weakness for him, it's a weakness for me. But look inside ourselves. What sin is entangling us? Man, when I think of getting entangled, I just think back and, some of the crazy things we used to do as youngsters, and then a buddy of mine got tangled up in some barbed wire, and it was quite funny to me. At the time, not so funny to him. But getting out of that thing, and that's what I think of when somebody is like entangled in sin. It hurts you. It's actually causing you damage. And God wants to set us free from those things. So let's deal with it. What's 5 minutes of awkwardness to say to somebody, I'm struggling with this, and freedom for the rest. Sometimes we don't deal with our sin because we're too scared to, we want to hide it. We don't want people to know. But that, I think, gives it more power. Just take the cover off and you'll find it's actually not that bad. Deal with it. Move on. And then that thing's got nothing anymore. It's easier to deal with. I'm not saying it's then gone just because you uncovered it, but it makes it easier to deal with because now it's open. When you're hiding it, it's just, then guilt gets added in just like that. And then this gets added, and then that gets added in, and then you've got a mountain out of a molehill. Satan does not want you to finish the race, so he's going to make use of any opportunity we give him to hinder us and to slow us down and to entangle us. Let's be intentional about making sure that that doesn't happen. Then we must look forward. The race marked out ahead of us. We can't run a race when we're looking everywhere else but ahead of us. We want to look inside because we want to prepare ourselves for the race. So we want to get rid of the hindering things and we want to get rid of the sin so that we can run nicely. So there's things we look back for, but man, God's called us to run into the future with Him. We've got to look ahead. I think too many people are looking into the past thinking, the glory days were behind us. Things were better back then, back when. How the Israelites did it. It blows my mind every time I read it that they want to go back to Egypt. I'm like, seriously, you guys were slaves there, beaten every day. and they'd rather go back there. But man, there's so many people you talk to, even in the last months. Oh man, I remember back in this year, it was so great there, and church was like this, and oh man, that was such a great place, and such a great time. I wish I could have that again. You know what? That's gone, right? We're supposed to go from glory to increasing glory. So what's ahead of us is always supposed to be better than what's behind us. We might have taken a scenic route, but when we come back to the main road and we move ahead, what's ahead is still going to be better than what was left behind. Better than the good old days. Yeah, again, run your own race. You know, a lot of people try and run other people's races for them. I think when that happens, we go back to the first point, where you are hindering yourself and you are hindering them from their race. Sometimes you just got to let people run. Even if they're running weird, it doesn't matter. They've got their race God called them to do. You know, God said to Abraham, take Isaac up to the altar. He didn't say it to Sarah. It wasn't Sarah's challenge to face. It was Abraham's challenge to face. It's easy to try and run your spouse's race or your children's race for them. Just sometimes you just got to let it go. As a church, we can do the same. And look at all the other churches and say, oh man, let's do what they're doing. It looks like it's fun over there. Let's do what they're doing. And just leave them to run their race. We run our race. Our job is to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus and to keep in step with Him. Not in step with every other church around North America. I think one of the big hindrances to us running our race is complacency, man. Things just don't seem important enough to us. We're just like, yeah, whatever, we'll get to it whenever. If the future is not important to you, you will lose sight of it very quickly. And something else will take its place. If the future God's called you to is not important to you, something else will become more important to you. That's where you're going to fix your eyes, and you're never going to walk in the things God's called you to do. I think as a believer, every decision we make is a spiritual decision. The amount of decisions people make without praying about it is astounding. People change jobs, change careers, don't ask God, you know. Jeremiah 10 verse 21 says, the shepherds are senseless. And one version of the Bible says they're stupid. The shepherds are stupid. So don't moan because I use the word stupid. It's in the Bible. And I'll use it again. The shepherds are stupid and do not inquire of the Lord. So they do not prosper, and all their flock is scattered. The Bible's pretty strongly emphasizing that we should be inquiring of the Lord. And that if we don't, we're senseless or stupid, whichever one you find less offensive to yourself. But I would recommend you use the one that gives yourself the biggest kick in the butt to get inquiring of the Lord. Joshua and Israel were supposed to take over the whole of the promised land when they went in. And the Gibeonites, remember the Gibeonites, they tricked them. They got some moldy bread and got some ratty old clothes and went over to them and said, we're from a faraway place, let's make a treaty together. And the Bible highlights, says in a verse there, it says, but Joshua and the leaders of Israel did not inquire of the Lord. Which means that if they had, God would have warned them against it. So they didn't inquire, and they just said, what do you think? That's a good idea. They're far away, man, doesn't matter. And then they treated away inheritance because they did not inquire of the Lord. How much future blessing are we giving away and losing out on because we haven't inquired of the Lord? Taking bad jobs, making bad moves. I mean, I've done that. I jumped from a job to what I thought was my dream job. selling sports equipment. I didn't inquire. I was just like a no-brainer. The guy was offering me more than double my salary to sell sports equipment. Psh. Who needs to ask? Obviously. Look at that. Psh. I couldn't ask for anything better. It turned out to be the worst decision I made. I was there only a couple of weeks when the sheriff of the court was there evaluating all the company's equipment. And so I was like, okay, this guy's going down. He owes a lot of money. And the business was... So he was hoping I'd make enough sales to pull them back out again. But I was like, obviously it's a shady guy. Otherwise the sheriff of the court wouldn't be here. Inquire of the Lord. It's better that way. Helps prepare us for what's coming. I think it's easy to bail out of things that come up. I mean, I've had a lot of people say, I wish I wanted to get involved with this, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, but it, I don't know, just didn't work out. You know what didn't work out in most of those cases, I were willing to bet, is they just didn't plan anything. And now the time has come, and it's, oh well, it's too late. I think preparing in advance, you do that for things that are important to you. You know something's coming up, you prepare for it, if it's important enough for you. I think we should be doing that for kingdom life. When you know things are coming up that you want to do, be intentional and start preparing for it. Next year, 2023, well, next year, a couple of hours, we've got trips to Cuba, Australia, Indonesia, the US. The men are going to have a houseboating weekend. We've got incoming ministry. We've got a US equip. There's things coming up that are going to be great fun to be a part of. And as we get closer, we'll let everybody know, although everybody knows about most of these trips. If you want to go, we start preparing. I had a great conversation with Ryan. I was like, oh, perfect. Ryan's done this before I even said anything. Excellent. Perfectly. Well, planning ahead to make sure that the trip takes place. If it's important, we'll do that. Sometimes I think we really want to, and the heart is there, but I think the intentionality sometimes lacks. And that means we never get there. Looking back, we've got the great cloud of witnesses, people who have been there before us, people who have done it and got the t-shirt. There's many people who have gone and actually finished their race. I know we hear in the news about all the people who don't finish the race. And I can't really say that they don't, but as far as everyone's concerned, they haven't finished the race. They fell out the race. Maybe they just stepped out the race, they got injured, they made a bad decision. We never get to hear about whether they picked themselves up again and got back on with the race. We just hear, this big name committed this sin, this big name committed, and they're out, and they're out, and they're out, and we write them off. I think we should, as Christians, be redemptive. So we should be hoping that they come back. But, all those guys just get written off. So maybe they got back into the race and finished it. But as far as everybody knows, that's not news. So they're out. They never finished the race. But even if you say that those guys didn't finish the race, there's many, many, many more who did finish the race. And showed us that it can be done. Shown us that God is faithful. That He does come through. Psalm 105:4-6 says, look to the Lord and His strength. Seek His face always. Remember the wonders He has done, His miracles, and the judgments He pronounced. You, His servants, the descendants of Abram, His chosen ones, the children of Jacob. Remember the great things He's done in the past. In the Old Testament, they used to build altars. Here's an altar. God did this. This is the altar. And then they name it after whatever God did for them. And then they move on. And that altar keeps reminding them. Every time they look at that, it's a reminder to the whole nation, God did this for us. And with the tribes, the 2.5 stayed behind, and the the others all went over. They built an altar to remember that, hey, actually, that you don't forget us on this side of the Jordan. We're a part of you guys, and we've got this treaty. Let's build an altar so that nobody forgets. And I think we need to build our own altars of things God's done for us, and just remember, remember God did this. We've got the year-end review coming up, and for me, that's a form of an altar to look back and say, look at the great things God has done. It's not a boasting in ourselves, it's a boasting in Him. It's a celebrating, rather, of what He's done in, with, and through us. And then the last looking back thing I want to look at is, what has God said to you? What has God said to you over the last year and asked you to do and challenged you to do? And then you know what the next question is, right? Did you do it? Very tough questions. But important ones, I think. If God has asked you to do something, if He has challenged you to do something, apart from the fact that He's the King, He doesn't ask us to do things that are for our detriment. He asks us to do things that are going to be for our good and for the good of others around us and for the good of His kingdom. So how have we done when doing those things so that we can benefit, the people around us can benefit, and the kingdom can be advanced? What about the adjustments He's asked us to make in our own lives? It's a scary part to make eye contact with anybody. I'm not hinting at anybody. But we need to ask ourselves that Romans 12, sober judgment. What has He challenged me to do, and what did I do about it? Have you followed through? Because I think a lot of things God asks us to do, we treat like New Year's resolutions. We get excited about it. 2 weeks later, it's a distant memory. He's always taking us to new places. He's always challenging us. He's always wanting us to grow ourselves, and He wants us to grow the kingdom. So He's always going to be asking us to do things or telling us to do things. John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commands. Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. And then one of the tough ones, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? It's probably some of the most challenging verses to read. And I was asked once, oh man, the guys from the Equip, is there a way to track change, you know? Everyone always leaves an Equip excited. And I was like, yeah, they should, because we've done our best to hear from God, and we're trying to help everybody hear from God. What happens from there is not anybody else's responsibility except the person who heard from God. I can't make Kelly change. I can't make Kelly live up to the challenges God gave her. Kelly needs to do that. If I do it, I'm imposing law, and I'm putting the things from the outside. I'm not allowing God to do it from the inside. But I can challenge her to keep going. Hey, Kelly, how are you doing with that? You told me God said this to you. How are you doing with that? Come on, let's go. Keep going. I can encourage her and keep giving her a kick in the pants. But that's about all. But it's a very challenging verse. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I say? We say He's the King, but when the King speaks, we ignore it. It's a rough one. I'll move on. Look up. We've got to fix our eyes on Jesus. If we do that, we're not going to get everything perfect. We're not going to get everything He asks us to do exactly 100% right. But if we are trying to, we're going to be way more successful in the things He's asked us to do. We're going to be way more effective, way more fruitful. And the key number one is keeping our eyes fixed on Him. A concentrated gazing on Jesus. I love the fact that Peter walked on water, jumped out of the boat. You got to be nuts to jump out the boat in the first place. And he walks on water. As long as his eyes are fixed on Jesus, he's walking in the supernatural. As soon as he looks at what's going on around him, he sinks. I think a lot of people, I want to walk more in the supernatural. How do I do that? I think the best thing one can do is keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. After that, it's between you and Him, really. I can help with a few things, but it's between you and Him. And when He tells you to do something, to do it. Otherwise, you're also not going to see too much. You can't expect to see people getting healed if you don't listen to Him say, go pray for this person. And when He does, then you've got to go and do it. Taking our eyes off Him always gets us into trouble and generally results in us never finishing the race. So, in 2023, let us be a people who keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. Be intentional with the things He tells us to do. And willingly and quickly get rid of things that hinder and entangle us, so that we can have the best 2023 we possibly can. So, as I said, we'll finish off with the video. And just some, what do they call it? The fine print, if you like. So I already said the video is not meant as boasting. It's an altar celebrating what Jesus has done with us through the year. The reason we do it is because we forget. And when we look back at the year, I hope that everyone feels encouraged and full of faith to swing even harder for the next year. If you're unhappy about who's in and not in the photos, I can only use photos I get sent. So there's some things I didn't get sent any photos, and there's some things I got sent a gazillion photos. So then got to pick out one or two that capture the event a bit better. So, yeah. Don't cry too much. Yeah, I think maybe not all the events are in as much as I could remember. I went through my diary, I went through Facebook, I went through our leaders' chats, just to try and make sure I got as many of the events as I can remember. And like I said, some of them have no... Are you waving at me? Are you leaving? Yeah. On my phone. I didn't pick photos from my diary. I went through my diary to see what events happened. Lord help us all. So, yeah, enjoy. Hopefully, you enjoy the video. But again, it's just a celebration. I tried to include as much as I could. Yeah, royalty-free music is not that awesome. But that was the best I had the patience for, should I say. After a while, you get tired of listening to jingles, so you just, this is fine. It's pretty much how I do shopping. This is fine. So, yeah, thank you, everybody that contributed to a great year. I think for me, the last year was one of the nicer years that I've had leading. Just, yeah, it just was nice. It was good, apart from one rough encounter, the rest was pretty good. So I think we will leave it at there. Robin, you can cut the stream off so that all those looking through the window will switch the lights off.